Morning. We're talking to
Morning,
Brin
Sheila.
today from Birmingham. Hi, Brin. How are you?
Hi, Sheila. I'm fine, thank you. Enjoying the sunshine as we all do. You know, a bit of light helps us, our mood, doesn't it?
Definitely.
Although the heat is a bit of an extreme.
Yes, I'd agree with you on that one, especially last night trying to sleep. So I think we had every fan in the house on, but never mind. Thunderstorms are coming. Can you tell everyone a little bit about yourself and when you had your stroke and your story about your your journey so far?
Okay, right. Well, it's just coming up to 15 years since I had the stroke. That was in 2005. I was 47 years old. I was a successful teacher and senior manager in a large sixth form college in Solihull, and I was a keen cyclist. So my usual 20-mile cycle route to work that I'd done for about 20 years without any problem whatsoever. On a morning like this, actually, but a bit cooler. Beautiful, clear blue skies. I was 10 miles into my ride. I'd just come back from a holiday in the south of France, camping with my kids. So I was very fit and healthy and beautifully tanned. And my worst nightmare unfolded in front of me when in a 4x4 at a junction in front of me with the lady driver was looking straight at me. And just as I got within about 20 meters, I was doing about 25 miles an hour. I was really, really doing well that morning. And she just pulled straight out in front of me. I screamed at the top of my voice, but obviously to no avail. And I knew I was going to hit the vehicle. And I dropped my right shoulder and I ploughed into the rear passenger door of the car and bounced back onto the road, really badly winded. She wound down the window and said, "Sorry, mate, I didn't see you." I won't repeat what I said, but I was a little bit upset. And I thought maybe I'd broken a rib and punctured a lung because I couldn't get my breath back. So I just rubbed my chest down with my right hand, found there was nothing protruding, and literally took a sigh of relief and started to breathe again. I was taken to a local hospital and stitched up. I got a large wound in my right shoulder, which needed 28 stitches. I was taken to a local hospital in Birmingham, stitched up and discharged home. Later that afternoon, I started to feel really, really tired. And I put that down to the start of shock. In fact, it was neurological fatigue that was kicking in and the start of the stroke. I got up to make a phone call because I was supposed to be doing a pub quiz that afternoon with a friend. My wife started screaming at me to sit down because she said my speech was slurred and I bumped into the door. I wasn't aware of that, but for once in my life, I actually did what I was told, and I went and sat down. And she is a biologist by background like myself, so she thought there was something seriously wrong. So she called the GP, which is perhaps mistake number one. You know, time is brain. But luckily, the receptionist said call for an ambulance. So we dialed 999, and an ambulance came within about 10 minutes. And I went up to get up from the settee, and I was totally paralysed down my left side. And I've never, ever felt as frightened as that moment. And I was taken to a local hospital. 2005 is 2 years before the National Stroke Strategy. So I was taken to hospital and I was assessed in triage, and they put 2 and 2 together and made 5, assuming that because I'd had an RTA, it must be an upper spinal tract injury. And I was then left for 72 hours after having a negative X-ray for spinal damage with nothing done whatsoever. And then an on-duty registrar said that maybe you should have a CT scan. And that's when they said, well, you've had a massive stroke. That's all I was told. 2005, I was put onto a classic frail and elderly ward. So 47, I'm on a ward full of octogenarian, double incontinent men, which was pretty horrible. And then I started to improve. I had lots of family to help me. I'd had an ischemic stroke. By the time they'd decided to investigate the stroke, I was so fit and healthy. If they were looking for a dissection, it had healed. So they started to look for a carotid dissection after 3 weeks, which was far too late. Let's just say my care wasn't good. But that sort of motivated me once discharged to try and improve and try and change it. I was discharged on the 7th of December 2005, way ahead of my predicted schedule, discharge date. But despite the severity of the stroke, because I was young, fit and healthy, or I say relatively young, fit and healthy at 47, I was sort of repairing myself. So I came home, and then luckily it was before early supported discharge teams, but in Birmingham there was a pilot project for an ESD team, and I was really lucky to receive help from them. And they came once a week. I had this indomitable Debbie, who was a very large, cheerful black country physiotherapist, who told me on her first meeting she was going to get down and dirty with me on the bed.
It's enough for you can't refuse.
But she was lovely. You know, she'd come out with phrases like "Yam doing Boston, Brin," which in Black Country Parliament means you're doing okay. You know, I had the usual sort of 6 weeks of therapy from that team, and then in June of 2006, when I was starting to feel a bit better, I negotiated a phased return back to work, and after 14 months of a phased return, gradually increasing my hours from sort of 2 half days a week to 2 full days and a half day, by September 2007, I went back to full time, teaching 2 full-time A-level AS biology groups and acting as head of faculty for the science faculty, which was one of the largest science faculties in sixth form colleges in the UK. But I wasn't aware of what was wrong, and when I look back now, it was absolutely bonkers trying to do that. But anyway, I did get back to full time, but I crashed out at half term of 2007, totally psychologically destroyed, completely unaware of what the problems really were. I applied for early retirement on health grounds, or I was actually told by my employer, to be accurate, that unless I applied for early retirement on health grounds, which I didn't want to do, they would bring an incompetency grievance against me. So after working there for 25 years, suddenly I didn't fit in with the landscape, and I must admit I cut and run. I applied for early retirement and I was rejected. The only reason they rejected me was I hadn't had enough time off work, which was stupid. You know, I busted a gut trying to get back, and then was rejected. But I was still a member at that time of the National Union of Teachers, because you don't go into a classroom in the UK unless you've got a bigger bully on your side. And they said, leave it to us. And a year later, with no more evidence, I got early retirement on health grounds. And then I started to improve. I was feeling fed up at home. So I volunteered for a stroke association communication group locally, and had my sort of very elderly new students to work with. And by working with them, I started to understand what was wrong with me. I started to understand what increased muscle tone was. I started to understand what neurological fatigue was. And once I understood that, I could then help other people to understand it. I was lying in bed one day listening to the radio, and heard an advert on the TV. I heard an advert on the radio for a team at Birmingham University who wanted people to take part in a roller skate study if they'd had a stroke. And you know, that devil on my shoulder just thought, this is so cool. I'm hemiplegic, but I can go roller skating at the university. Of course, it was nothing of the sort, but that's got me into stroke research. And once people realised, I had a fabulous physio who was doing the research, and she realised that I'd actually got the capacity maybe to really help researchers. And I was passed on to another lady who I still work with, Dr. Kristen Hollands, who now works at Salford, and she's a specialist in gait post-stroke, and so on and so on and so forth. I got involved with the National Institute for Health Research. At that time, the Stroke Research Network had this is 2009. The Stroke Research Network had locally had a theme to try and increase the amount of patient involvement in their work, and I just fitted that profile perfectly. I'd got managerial skills, I sort of had my science background, and then I got involved in national work with the NIHR, and never looked back. I've now participated and contributed, I should say, to over 70 stroke research trials, and I'm currently a co-applicant on 5, which is really, really rewarding. It helps you to change things. I still haven't been involved in something from the word go, which has been published and changed NICE guidelines. That's my ultimate ambition. But there's currently a trial which I'm hoping, fingers crossed, will be funded in Stoke-on-Trent, the MAPS-2 trial, which is using a metoclopramide, which is a common anti-nausea drug, in a prophylactic way, because most people who have strokes actually die of pneumonia, and they contract pneumonia because of having an aphasia, and so it's common post-stroke to vomit. But if you can't control your throat muscles, you tend to inhale it, and that forms a locus of infection. And then if you're a very frail and elderly patient with lots of comorbidities, you're more likely to die. So if we can stop the vomiting, we can stop that locus of infection for pneumonia caused by inhalation of vomit. Sorry, that's a bit of gruesome at this time in the morning. But that trial has been funded once, but we had to stop it for quality assurance problems. But we're waiting for a new version of the trial to be approved. And I think it could actually change people's lives significantly. The pilot's already shown that it's significantly reduced the mortality rate from stroke, from pneumonia. So if we can roll it out, as we hope to a large sort of pan-UK, if not pan-European trial, it could be a game changer. So that's an interesting place to be.
So would you, obviously we've got lots of research projects on our website, would you encourage people to have a look and see if
oh God, yeah, because you've got nothing to lose.
with?
You've got nothing to lose and everything to gain. Everybody's got some experience, and with the greatest respects for the most experienced and empathic of medics, they haven't got any real idea of what a stroke is like. And you have, if you've had one. You've got to get a mindset where your stroke is unique, because we all know every stroke is different. So just because you've had a stroke doesn't mean to say that everybody else is going to experience what you're experiencing. We all have different lives before and after the stroke. And so that's something you've got to be able to also put into the mix. But you've got nothing to lose and everything to gain. All of those psychological aspects of stroke, where you feel worthless, you lose all of your self-confidence, you just don't know what's going to be there. You can actually chip away at those by being part of research, because you get more self-esteem, because you're actually making something positive out of this horrible situation. And I mean, of those 70 odd trials I've contributed to, not one have I had to actually take a pill or a potion. Most of them have been rehabilitation trials. And you could, even if you're in one of those trials where there is a pill or a potion to take, you could be taking a placebo, so you may not be involved in that way. But there are loads and loads of ways you can get involved. You can get involved in the research question to start with. Are the medics actually asking the right question? Is it appropriate? Is it right to phone people up and have conversations? I hate using the telephone, And it's really hard when you've had a stroke, because all you can do is focus on hearing, and it's really tiring. Whereas, I mean, with video conferencing like this, it's so much better because you've got non-verbal communication elements, but you can feed all that back to these research teams and make sure that it's more appropriate for stroke survivors. So yeah, long answer to a very short question.
And like you said, in the process, you're learning more about your stroke and the effects and things like that, because I think this is what's lacking in the hospitals, is people get discharged, but simple things like fatigue aren't explained to them, you know, and things like that, where, you know, it should be.
To be perfectly honest, I don't think you can explain fatigue. I think you have to experience fatigue, and even then, everyone's experience of fatigue is totally different.
Yeah.
No, I have fatigue. I know my fatigue is light dependent. So, which is why as soon as March arrived, I wake up. I feel a totally different person. But I know that come September, October time, when the light starts to change a little bit, I'll start to get bits of fatigue, even now. You know, when I'm trying to explain it to undergrad students, I describe it a bit like, I get this right, going out on the lash, on the pre-lash, sorry. You know, I know anyone who's of a certain age will know that before you go out on a night on the town, you'll go round to somebody's house and you'll actually warm up a little bit. Yeah. And you go out and you know you're not compos mentis, but you're functional, hopefully, by the time you get out on the town. But imagine waking up and feeling like that, but you've had no fun beforehand.
Yeah.
That's my take on neurological fatigue. You know something's not quite right. Now, if you're of a certain mentality where you're a sort of an oh woe is me person who always feels that, you know, you're being picked upon, or you're easily the person that takes to your bed if you feel a little bit of a sniff. Or nowadays it's got a different connotation, that, hasn't it? You know, you immediately go for a COVID test. But I think you know, fatigue is weird, and we still don't know why it happens, how it happens, and it's sort of the probably one of the most significant aspects of stroke, which is still not understood in any shape or form, but it's common. I mean, I think one of the things that's going to come out of COVID, or I hope comes out of the COVID, is that there are lots of people now experiencing viral fatigue. Yeah. Now, in the 80s, we had yuppie flu with ME coming in, and maybe it's not going to be the same for sure, but in terms of the effects, they're very, very similar. So we might have some outcomes from the current pandemic which are a benefit to stroke patients, and fatigue may be one of them. That's with my positive hat on. That's what I'm hoping for.
So bringing us to lockdown then, was it just you and your wife in the house, just the two of you?
Yeah. I've got three sons that are now sort of grown up, left, and having children, and have got children, which is lovely to have grandchildren. And that's, I think, one of those additional motivating factors that can get to you at a certain period in your life. And the boys are all okay, and we've got good relationships with them, so that helps psychologically as well. My house is paid for as well, so that's okay. You know, that's all part of that package, isn't it? Of living your life, and hopefully, if you've done it the right way, when something hits you like stroke, it might not be as devastating as it could be. Yeah,
definitely. So how did you keep in touch with your sons and their families then during lockdown?
Using Zoom. We had family quizzes on a Friday night, which we were really bad at. I'm sad to say. We were the losing team, my wife and I, which I was, until we set the questions, and then of course the questions weren't fair.
Yeah, we had that as well.
Yeah, so but now obviously with things lightening up a bit, we can see them. One of them is local, and another is down in Farringdon near Oxford, and one's just outside Northampton. So they're all not too far away, which is quite nice.
Oh, that's good. It must have been quite hard not seeing your grandchildren.
Oh, it was horrible, yeah. And as I say, I don't think I would have. I know people say, "Oh, will grandchildren change your life?" I don't think I would have appreciated it until I had them, and it's just lovely.
Yeah. Oh. So did lockdown have an impact on you and your wife, or was it business as usual, or?
It's not business as usual. No, in fact, it's had a very positive effect because of getting in. My wife retired last year, and I mean, she was going to see my eldest son's son, who lives fairly close, so she could walk there, or I could drop her off in the car. But then there was a period after lockdown where we couldn't do that. I was going to a local rehabilitation gym, and that closed down just on lockdown. So that could have been devastating for me, because I loved going to the rehab gym. Although I don't believe in the term rehabilitation, I use the term improvement because I think rehabilitation is loaded. Because when you talk about rehab, you're thinking about getting back to somewhere where you were. And I don't think after stroke, this isn't being negative, I don't think you can ever be the same person again, because psychologically you will be different. But you can constantly improve. So where rehabilitation could be seen as actually something that's finite with an end point, getting back to where you were, if you talk about improvement's infinite, and I'd rather be in that frame of mind.
Yeah.
Because I think we can all improve, no matter what our impairments are. They may be very, very small, but if we can focus on those improvements, then we can improve our psychological state. So when lockdown happened, I could have been in dire straits, but I managed to get hold of a recumbent exercise bike from the gym, and I decided I was going to do some unfinished business and cycle virtually from Birmingham, where I live, to Paris. And I was going to do that starting on the 20th of March, by my 62nd birthday on the 25th of May. But I finished a bit early. I got there on the 5th of May. So then it was what to do next. Well, carry on, of course, because there was nothing else. All the research work I've been involved with had stopped. So, or if there were meetings, they were held virtually. So I didn't have to go out. I could manage my time more effectively. So I carried on pedaling, and I'm currently on my way to Budapest. I've got 17 days to get to Budapest, and that's about 14 miles a day. Because I'm currently I left Venice a couple of weeks ago, and I'm now in Slovenia. Honestly.
So when you get to Hungary, where are you going to go next, or are you going to stop?
I think I'll go to Istanbul next, because I've never been to Istanbul. So Istanbul I could get to by mid-October, I think.
You could end up going right around the world.
That's been suggested, but I honestly don't think I could do that. I'll see what. I don't think I'll set a target. I'll carry on going and keep a record of the mileage, and just see where I get to.
See what happens.
Yeah.
So this has all been done on a bike at home then? This
has all been done on a bike on home, and it's all been done because of COVID and lockdown. Because I've had nothing else to do, so I've had to occupy myself, and I'm just doing 15-minute sessions. I started doing 5 miles in a 15-minute session. I can now do 5 miles in a 13-minute session. So I stick to 5 miles, and I'm doing some measurements of sort of heart rate, my blood pressure, just to make sure things are okay. Yeah. I was asked by Professor Anand Pandian, who I work with at Keele University, if I would just take measurements of my thigh and my calves, just to see how muscle mass is changing. So there's some science involved as well. It's not just a
research project, isn't it?
But it's amazing what we can do if we have the opportunity. I wish more people had access to to appropriate exercise at home, really.
Yeah.
Now, I know I'm lucky that I got the space. I got hold of the exercise bike very reasonably because of the circumstances of the gym closing down. But you know, I think there's also a really strong evidence base that participating in exercise helps your cognitive improvement post-stroke, as well as your psychological improvement. So I'm a huge advocate of exercise anyway.
I think that's what a lot of people are missing during lockdown, their trips to the physio or the gym or whatever stage they're at. It's just, they're missing it because it was somewhere they had to go to. So hopefully it'll all get started bit by bit again. I think the gyms have opened up again, so we'll see.
Well, I think we're going to have to look at doing things differently.
Yeah.
And it's how we do things. And how we achieve that difference is going to be, what's happened. I think, I don't think we can look at things being the same as they were.
No.
We've got to sort of be flexible and in lots of ways, not have our expectations that things will return to normal. We've got to look at alternate ways of doing things, like this conversation we're having now.
Yeah.
Which we'd have never have done before COVID. It was possible, but nobody bothered to do it because they hadn't been pushed to do it. It's, as a biologist, it's punctuated evolution where suddenly there's a massive hit on living things and they have to adapt quickly or they die, which is what we think happened with the demise of the dinosaurs. Maybe that's where we were with society pre-COVID. We got to a point where we were all really quite comfortable, and now we need to suddenly change what we're doing, make use of all of these amazing communication opportunities that we've got, the new technologies, and then move on.
Well, as stroke survivors, we're used to the new normal, aren't we?
Yeah, exactly. You're taking the words out of my mouth. I think we're actually those of us that have got to a point in our improvement where we can exist within current society. I think we've done that because we've had to adapt, we've had to adopt new strategies, we've had to be flexible. And we build on that and we thrive.
That's it. Now we're waiting for everyone else to catch up with us.
Yes, yeah.
So did you attend any different strokes groups before they were closed due to lockdown?
I mentioned in our sort of preamble that I attended a conference in 2009, the Different Strokes Conference in Weston-super-Mare, and at that point there was no group operating in Birmingham. And I met a young couple who, Ingrid had a stroke after she'd given birth to her second child. And they were wanting to set up a group in Birmingham. So in 2009, we set up the Birmingham and Handsworth and Sandwell Different Strokes group. So I'm still involved in that group. I dropped out of work with the Stroke Association, both locally and nationally. Mainly because that bloody-minded side of me decided that actually some of the things they did I didn't really agree with. So I sort of stuck with supporting Different Strokes and also the National Institute for Conductive Education in Birmingham, who I benefited from with some therapy in 2006. Which is a small charity that primarily works with children with cerebral palsy. And I'm an ambassador for that charity and strongly believe in the work they're doing.
Fantastic. So has the group been keeping in touch during lockdown?
By email, yeah, but that's all. It's not a particularly young group. I've got to be very diplomatic. Ingrid and Darren, they've got young children, and they're on the younger end of the scale. Like all groups, we had great difficulty securing a meeting place over the years, and now we use a local church hall in Sandwell, which through Ingrid's parents' connections we can have that. But we've been all over and being charged ridiculous amounts. Some of the places we found weren't wheelchair accessible, which wasn't really good for a different strokes group.
No, no.
But the place we've got.
So you haven't gone down the Zoom route to keep in touch then?
No, we should do, but we haven't yet. And I think that's something that when we're able to meet as a group, I think we need to sort out. You know, that's on the to-do list, really.
Well, that's it, because it doesn't have to be, you know, because of lockdown. You could get to the winter and you could get to the, you know, really snowy day and none of you can make the meeting, or it's not safe to go out. So do it by Zoom, you know, and problem solved. Yeah,
and it also means that we don't have to just have our monthly meeting. We can have it whenever we want.
Yeah, that's it.
We can annoy each other all day, every day.
I'll get shot for suggesting that. So what have you missed most personally about being shut down and locked down? What are you enjoying or going to enjoy in the coming months that we can get back to doing?
Since I had the stroke, and because there was a long-running court case, and some of the neurologists told me that by the time I was 60 I'd be in a wheelchair, I decided that I was not going to go down that route, and my wife decided whilst I was strong enough we'd travel as much as possible. So we've been all over the world in the interim, and we were supposed to be going to Mongolia in July. Obviously that didn't happen, but it's quite good it didn't happen in a way, because Mongolia was hit by plague. So I've missed those trips. We're supposed to be going to Laos in October, but that's not going to happen now. So it's travel more than anything.
Yeah.
And actually just that sense of freedom of getting in the car, going somewhere and thinking, actually, is it safe to do this?
Yes.
You know, I think that's, I'm still very fit and healthy. I've never really had any comorbidities. There's nothing like that associated with stroke. I always refer to it as a pure stroke. You know, the only thing that happened was that by trying to climb into the back of a Land Rover Freelander on my bicycle before they opened the door, you know, I suffered the consequences of that and suffered the stroke. We still don't know exactly what really caused the stroke. We know that the accident probably caused it, and we know that it was probably caused by an arterial dissection somewhere in the body due to the impact.
Yeah.
But it was never actually categorically 100% for sure. But I've had lots and lots of MRIs for the research work I've been involved with and the trials I've done. And so I've had some really good MRIs at Birmingham University Imaging Centre and at Queen's Road, Queen's Square at the Royal College of Neurology in London for one of their trials. So I know where all the damage is in my brain, and it's a bit like a blunderbuss type effect. It's all over. It's a complete mess. I shouldn't be able to do this, although I know I natter on. You know, which is what I find so interesting. You know, neuroplasticity is alive and kicking in my head. Long late may it be. And I think that's one of the messages that I take to people who've had strokes. You know, that it doesn't matter how much or how little damage there is. You can have a tiny lesion in your brain and it can be catastrophic. You can have a massive lesion, you know, a huge area of damage, and yet you can still recover quite significantly. You know, I know where my damage is. I've got multiple lesions in the prefrontal cortex and the right temporal lobe. And now I know where the damage was. I now understand all the problems of why I had difficulty going back to work when I did. The basis of my current hemiplegia is the damage that was done to the basal ganglion. So the biologist that's inside me, my teaching career, you know, understands all of that, but I also know how I improved. I had a functional MRI at Queen's Square last year. I wanted one of those because I wanted to find out which parts of the brain were lighting up and doing the work for the damaged areas. It didn't quite work like that, but I'm quite happy to know that I can still do things.
That's
Sorry, I don't know how we got onto that, but anyway.
Let's go back to the travel. When
Yeah.
do you think you'll feel comfortable to travel again? Are you going to wait for a vaccine to come in, or do you think, you know, next summer, next year? When?
Oh gosh, I don't know whether there's an answer to that one. I mean, I think it's, until there's a vaccine, I think it's still far too risky. I mean, I'm not daft. We've seen how quickly things have changed in the last few weeks, where there's local flare-ups. I honestly don't fancy being on the other side of the world, waiting to get on a plane when suddenly the destination is closed.
Yeah.
You know, I'm not prepared to take that risk. So I think as soon as I reckon it's going to be a couple of years, really. But in March of this year, February, I went to Guyana. So we got back just as everything was kicking off. So we were really lucky. But that was really, really fab, because Guyana is one of those, it's sort of just on the border of Brazil, so northern South America, and it's totally unspoilt. A lot of the tropical rainforest there. And the rivers are just to die for. They've got the most amazing wildlife. And so saw lots and lots of cool things there that made me cry because I'd wanted to see it since I was a kid. Like arapaima, which are the largest freshwater fish in the world. I'd read a Gerald Dole book when I was 13 years old. I think it was 3 Singles to Adventure. And he talked about being in a dugout canoe and this huge fish swimming beneath the canoe. And that's when I wanted to see an arapaima. And when the rest of the group were going to be going on a walk through the rainforest, I knew I couldn't do it. It was the path was too rough for me. So I was offered the opportunity to go downriver and go to an oxbow lake where there were arapaima, I was assured. So it was a complete no-brainer. Off I went. I was
going to say.
As I was sitting there with this local boatman, you know, he said, just wait. They'll be coming up soon. And suddenly there's this huge gulp of air taken from the surface. And he says, oh, that's only a small one. That's about 40 or 50 pounds. Oh. And then this massive fish just crested out of the water with these scarlet stripes down its tail. It's absolutely beautiful. Well, salmon pink stripes. And that was probably about 300 pounds. But, you know, that's when I burst into tears. You know,
I'm not surprised.
But we came back then to sort of lockdown, but I'd had all of that, you know, so.
You just snuck it in before lockdown.
Yeah.
Well, Eddie from the Norwich group, I don't know if you watched my interview, he went to Australia in February and he got stuck in lockdown in Australia.
Oh, God.
He was staying with his daughter. So they were in lockdown for a while in Australia, and then they flew back in the middle of lockdown at the beginning of May, back to our lockdown. Again. So he's had a bit of an adventure this year as well.
Yeah.
So they no sooner got there than, you know, the COVID rumble started, and that was then. But I can think of worse places to be in lockdown. I mean, Perth and
Australia. Well, I've got an aunt that lives in Australia, and we've been going to see her ever since we got married. But when we went on our honeymoon, we couldn't afford to get from Singapore to Sydney, so we never got there on our honeymoon. And she's been asking me to get over there ever since, and we've never managed it. So maybe one day we'll get there.
You'll have to put that on your list as well, then.
Oh, it's on the list. But the trouble is, we keep adding other things as well, so it keeps shifting. It's like having a hole in a bucket, but as soon as we put stuff in, it never fills up.
There's always somewhere else comes up, whether it's a conversation with somebody or a television program. You think, oh, I think I'd like to experience that or go there or what have you.
Yeah.
Like you say, where do you stop? You can't, you know.
Well, so I've got to the stage now where I just think, you know, why not? It's not can't do that because there are things I was told I couldn't do, I would never be able to do.
Yeah.
I have done it. I can do it. but say really the only thing that I haven't done yet, which is I suppose an ambition, is being part of research from start to finish, which changes NICE guidelines, because that will be the ultimate positive out of the stroke for me. I think with the MAPS 2 trial, that's the best chance, because it's been 10 years in the making, and I was involved in the original discussions to develop the research question.
Yeah.
And so, you know, it's been involved right from the start, and hopefully when it's funded and when it's completed, I'll be able to give a presentation at the National Stroke Forum or the European Stroke Conference, which would then complete another ambition.
Another tick in the box.
Yeah. I might, you know, I as my kids say, just remember, Dad, you know, you might not be frail, but you're actually getting a little bit more elderly. In their cheery way.
It's nice how our kids remind us of that.
Oh, yes, they bring you down to the ground, don't you? Yeah.
Yeah, you're too old. You don't know about that. You want me to fix that for you, Mum? No, I'll work it out myself. And I'll sit there for hours trying to work something out on my phone, just so I don't have to ask them. Yeah. Whereas they would have done it in seconds, but it's taken me hours, but I'm not going to give them the satisfaction.
Oh, quite right too, yes. Yeah.
Oh yeah, we just didn't have these things around when we were youngsters, and they'll grow older and their kids will be doing the same to them, so it'll be tit for tat.
Well, I can still show all of them how to repair their bikes when things go wrong. I mean, I can't compete with YouTube. I mean, we're in a YouTube generation, aren't we?
Yeah.
I was in a research meeting for the Stroke Association a couple of years ago, and one of we were looking at, it was a funding meeting, and one of the trials that was asking to be funded, one of the medics says, "Oh, I've not come across this procedure, I have to admit." So because I hadn't come across it, I went onto YouTube, and there it was. And the other medics surround were slightly older than this young guy, and their jaws physically dropped, you know, and it just totally encapsulated the change in the way people work. You know, our generation traditionally would have gone to the library, or now we go to the internet, and there's that generation that if they want to do something, if they want to repair something, they go to YouTube and it's there. Yeah, but having a medical procedure, I just had visions of, you know, going in for an operation, and you're in the operating theatre, and you know, the surgeon thinks, "Oh, haven't seen this before. I'll just check it on my phone." You know?
Looking at YouTube.
Well, that'll do. You know?
But isn't it fantastic, the technology, that if you're just sitting there thinking, I wonder how that happens, or I wonder if it's whatever you wonder, you can just tap it into your phone or your laptop or your iPad or whatever, and you get an answer, and it leads you off on a tangent, and you can be there for hours. Which, although I love books, and if I'm reading a book, I've got to have an actual book. I can't read it on a Kindle or anything.
Yeah, I'm the same with that. Yeah,
I love books, but you can only go so far. If you've got an encyclopedia in front of you, you can only go so far with a certain thing. Whereas with the internet, you can go off on all different kinds of tangents, and it just it's amazing what you can find out, and you can find out like that. You don't have.
I have a lovely technology example, which was my sister, who, when she was fairly young, she had a hip replacement, and for her 40th birthday, her husband took her to Borneo, and they decided they were going to climb Mount Kinabalu, and they were with this group climbing Mount Kinabalu, and Kinabalu is quite high, and it was sort of early hours of the morning. It was a night climb, and they got to this rest house early hours of the morning, and there was a ladder getting up to this sort of little sort of rest house. And as my sister was climbing this ladder, there was this weird squeaking noise. And there was a physio in the group with them, on holiday. And my sister said, "Oh, did you hear that?" And this woman said, "Yeah, it was coming from you." And he said, "Pardon?" And she moved again. He says, "Yes, it's coming from your bum or somewhere there." And she did it again. She said, "It's coming from your hip." And Nick said, "Well, I had a hip replacement." She said, "Well, it's something to do with your hip." So she got to the top and she got on her phone and got a signal, and she phoned her consultant in Sutton Coldfield and said, "I've got this squeaky hip. What do you think it is? I'm currently sitting on top of Mount Kinabalu in Borneo." And this consultant said, "Oh, we've never done anything about the effect of hip replacements to altitude. Can you let us make notes of what's going on?"
That's amazing.
Yeah. Mobile phone technology.
Oh my goodness. Fantastic.
And I can't get the signal at home here.
Well, it's been great talking to you today, Brin.
Yes, I have got useful from it.
Hopefully we'll talk to you soon, and fingers crossed for your research project. Let us know how it goes.
And I'll let you know when I get to Budapest.
Yes, definitely.
Which I will.
Definitely.
But it won't be before and it won't be after the 31st. It will be on the 31st, preferably at 7:10 in the morning.
Why 7:10?
Because that's when I had the accident.
Ah, that explains it then. Well, thank you very much.
Okay.
And, we'll talk to you soon. Bye.
Okay, bye-bye. Bye.